So the workday's over and it's time to DM tonight. So this video is going to be about preparation for the game. Tune in. Good hygiene. Next up, it's time to convert the dining room table into the game room. Our playing surface, and it is awesome. It is a sewing mat. I've had several people ask questions about this. It is actually a vinyl cutting mat. Some of this stuff is stuff from an earlier video. We don't need it for tonight, and I don't write this big when I'm DMing anyways. But for that video I did to illustrate, not only did I do it to illustrate how I kind of track hit points in battle, but I also did it to illustrate my inability to spell the word dwarf, which is kind of fun. So I'm just going to go back over this again, kind of get the rest of this ink off. And we're in good shape. The other thing I like to do is, this is just another, I think, extra piece that tends to add some really fun ambiance to the game, is I play music. And so typically something from maybe a stream, medieval music or Baroque or Renaissance, depending on where we're at. And then when some battle tunes as well, particularly if we get into combat. The real way to win the hearts and minds of your characters is to make some dip. All right, so fine, it's bribery. I eat the dip too. She also knows what time it is. She's often joining us during our games. He, on the other hand, tends to just hang out and do his own thing. He is Mr. Chill. This is Toby, by the way. All right. Next, I'm going to assemble my very awesome dice tower that my son made for me for Christmas. It is held together by magnets, and it is pretty amazing. So first, I'll take the pieces out. Snap these guys together. Like so. Like so. And the piece that captures the dice. Tilt it up. Voila. Dice tower. What's a dice tower without dice? Collecting quite a few these days, so I'm getting there. And of course, how could I forget? Gotta get this guy ready. So, how about that? Yeah, because we are playing The Lost Mine of Phandelver out of the starter set. Technically, you shouldn't need other books, but I always like to keep my player's handbook ready. And now that we've been playing for a while, a couple of the other guys have also got player's handbooks. And it's just nice to be able to reference if somebody has a question or if somebody's not quite sure how to interpret something with a spell. I like to keep this handy so that I too can kind of weigh in and, you know, without bogging the game down too much, make a judgment call on how something kind of works. But I am now very much more reliant upon the players to know more about their spells, more about their abilities, and trust more that they're adding the appropriate modifiers and things like that to their rolls. So, yeah. Yeah, so before folks start showing up, I wanted to just kind of go through my Dungeon Master's checklist. Um, Pencils, just in case. Folks forget it. Paper, blank paper, just in case. I think it's really important for your player characters to be taking their own notes. You're the Dungeon Master. It is not your responsibility to keep up with their gold, their their health, all of those things they have to keep up with, their spell slots, all of that stuff. I'm cool. I don't care kind of what method you use as long as it works for you. Your own dice. Okay, I've got lots of dice. If somebody forgets a set, that's no big deal, but you should really have, as a player, your own dice. And your own player sheet. Now, there's some schools of thought on player sheets. Some Dungeon Masters like for the players to give the DM their player sheet when the game concludes, and there's a reason for that. What if you're out sick? Or you get called out of town, or something happens and you can't make the game the next week. Well, you've got a whole group of people that are kind of relying on you to play the game, and there's a missing spot. So if you're the Dungeon Master, you can play that character when that person is absent. And I've done that several times with different characters. And what I normally do is, as the Dungeon Master, because they've got all this other stuff to keep up with, I will pick one or two attacks. I will always put that character at the end of the lineup in terms of initiative order, kind of regardless. I do include them in combat. So if they don't show up, they can still get hit, and so they can still take damage. So there is some skin in the game still for not showing up, but I don't play that character recklessly, and because, like I said, I have a lot of other stuff to keep up with, I will typically play that character very conservatively. If they do magic, I might just pick Sacred Flame, so a cantrip or something like that. I don't want to have to keep up with spell slots, or I might even just use weapons. That's kind of tough on the group, particularly at higher levels, because the group sometimes needs everybody, and if it's a difficult, combat situation, to be able to deliver damage so they can get out of the trouble that they're in. But, you can, as a DM, you can kind of see how those things are going and play them by ear. In my case, with the game that I'm DMing, most of the character sheets, people have PDF copies of them, or they can take a picture of them with their cell phone and send it to me if they know last minute that they can't make it. So I don't have a problem with them taking their player sheets with them. And in fact, for me, I like to encourage them to study their player sheet, make sure that everything's correct, and look at the spell slots, look at the spells that are available if they have magic. Make sure their armor classes are right, make sure their gold is sorted out. Spend some time with the character sheet, and then kind of make it your own and then bring it back. So I leave that up kind of to the players. I don't have a preference. If they want me to keep their sheet, I'll keep it. If not, that they can take it with them. Okay, the other thing I like to do personally for my games is, you've seen the mat that I use, the tabletop surface, which is awesome. So I do have dry erase markers for myself to use, and I also draw the maps out in real time. I don't know if you noticed, hang on, I'll show it to you again. If you're playing the starter set, look away. Spoilers are coming. Okay, so you can see I've got two maps on my board here, my surface. This map in this corner, closest to me, is the entire Sword Coast region of the Forgotten Realms, where the players, where this adventure is primarily taking place. I don't add landmarks to the map until the players discover it. So this is an ongoing, growing map, and it stays here. The larger maps in the middle, I freehand during the battle. So you can actually kind of see here, I've got a black ink and blue ink. The players made it as far as the black ink in one adventure, and so that was all that was there. In the very next evening, they continued to fill out the rest of this castle, and that's what I drew out with blue ink, kind of in real time. And it's not exact, but it's pretty darn close. and it really helps the characters kind of get their bearings in terms of what's happening. And also keep in mind, my players play with minis, and they like to. There's actually a set of minis that goes with the starter set, and one of my player characters bought those, and so they play with the minis, and it really helps them in terms of combat to determine where they are. These are our bad guys. Whenever there is combat, we put numbers on the tops of these beer bottle caps, and that shows direction about where things are. You know, if there's combat, movement, whatever, we use these guys, and there's enough of them, so if it's the same kind of creature, we'll use the same kind of bottle caps, which I think is a really cool, kind of innovative way that we've come up with to help the players sort of understand where things are in relation to the creatures that they're fighting. So those bad guys right there look dangerous, don't they? Okay, so we've got bottle caps for monsters, we've got minis for the players, and that's their preference. I didn't require them to have minis. Before we bought minis, before one of our player characters bought the minis, they were actually using bottle caps to designate themselves as well. So they like the idea of being able to see kind of where things are in relation to other things, as opposed to just using the theater of the mind. And again, as a dungeon master, I can go either direction. It was their preference. So I've already talked about music. I think music is an important component to the game, at least it is for us. It's nice to have music in the background that's sort of mood setting. Snacks, because we'll go for 3 or 4 hours sometimes and you get hungry. Drinks. I will say Dungeons and Dragons is it's not a spectator sport. It is a participation sport, and you've got a lot of stuff to kind of keep up with, so maybe 1 or 2 drinks as a social thing is fine. Much more than that, when the old brain gets a little fuzzy, that makes the game harder to play, harder to keep up with stuff, just like anything else. So certainly enjoy yourself, but you've been warned. After 4 hours, if you look down and you've got an empty 6-pack, somebody's probably going to forget some stuff. In summary, there's not a lot really to bring to the table. Paper, pencils, all the other stuff. Use the dry erase surface that I use. It's all just stuff to make it easier for me, but it's totally personal preference how you want to do it. So tonight we have D&D. I'll be DMing the starter set. Now the characters are getting kind of close to finishing this adventure out. I think we probably have a month. If we play once a week for 3-4 hours a night, maybe 3 hours a night, we probably only have about a month left, about 4 sessions to go, I think. All the characters are now at level 4, and then we'll get into what's next. Do we crack open another out-of-the-box adventure and go with that? Do I continue to DM? Does somebody else want to DM? Do we want to create some one-offs? Do we want to create an entire kind of homebrew, much larger adventure using these guys here? Because we got them. So I'm looking forward to what we decide to do next. But we've had just such a blast with the starter set. I think we're well on our way to continuing this group for the foreseeable future. That said, I do have a contest goal in mind. Now, I did the silly thing about shaving and cutting my hair, and I know nobody gives a shit about my hair or my beard, but I thought, why not? Give it a try. What I really am still trying to do is get to 1,000 subscribers before Dragon Con, which is in September. And we're in, what are we in? January. So, I mean, that's a long way out. I hope that I can get there. If I don't get there before September, then I'm doing something terribly wrong. And really what my goal is I'm going to wait until I get to 1,000 before I actually invest in some updated technology here. And you can see I've got some stuff here that's a little boom mic that I've had sticking around. My wife Has this little guy here, which is kind of cool, that I use on occasion. But this is all stuff we've had sitting around. I don't have a fancy camera yet. I don't have fancy sound equipment, as you can tell. But I wanted to try to just drive this channel on content alone. So I appreciate any support you guys can give me by subscribing, by sharing it with your like-minded friends, by offering me suggested topics. I'm on the Reddit Dungeons and Dragons page a lot. I'm still under that as Drinks and Dragons. This channel is just Ryan Bays at this point, and for the foreseeable future, because who knows what else we'll talk about besides D&D in the future. I do have a lot of other interests, and I hope that this becomes a platform for sharing some kind of interesting things. And I'm learning a lot of this as we go. Somebody on the Reddit page today was talking about live streaming. I would love to live stream a session. I mean, some of the stuff that these guys come up with is hilarious, and I think a lot of folks would find it really entertaining. But that's, you know, for the future. And so I need your support to get there. I'm trying to get to 1,000, so any help you can give is most appreciated. Yeah, one other thing on the contest, I will do some sort of giveaway. I'm not sure what it will be, but if I can get to 1,000, I mean, I'll come up with something, and it'll be a contest. I do want to make this interactive and fun, so stay tuned. All right, folks, as always, if you like this video, please subscribe by hitting the button, share it with your friends, give it a thumbs up, watch some of my other videos and see what you think, and please leave comments below. And we'll talk to you soon. I gotta get ready to go DM. These guys are gonna be here pretty soon. I gotta eat some dinner, make some dip. We'll see you next time.